3, 2, 1. You can go ahead and start talking.
Oh, I can just talk, okay. If I'm going to be honest, and I am, I'm going to say that prayer really wasn't that important to me in the beginning. I did it because I saw other people do it. My parents told me that I should. I sing in a praise team, and so we always prayed before rehearsal. Or, if I'm eating, I prayed to start my meal. And so that's what my idea of prayer was, something you had to do to get to something else. It really wasn't something that was a practice that was really close to my heart. One Sabbath afternoon, I was waiting for my brother so he could take me home. I didn't have a car at the time. But then I saw a group of people gathered in front of me, and I got handed a piece of paper. And it said, we have a prayer group at our church. And they were writing down names of the members. And I quickly said, oh, I'm not in this group. The leader, her name is Natalie. And she said, well, why don't you come and join us? It would be good. We need your input. And in my mind, I said, I have no desire to be in this prayer group. I don't want to be in this prayer group. I'm not doing it. And that's exactly what I said to myself. And then I looked up at the ceiling and I said, God, do you really want me to be a part of this? Then I ended up writing my name down. They were discussing what they wanted prayer to look like at Allen Chapel. To my surprise, I actually had an opinion. I wanted Allen Chapel to be known as a house of prayer. And so after the meeting, Natalie and I talked for a little bit about the meeting and my ideas, and I'm really shocked myself that I actually had an opinion about prayer. So fast forward to 2017, our new pastor and his wife, Pastor Corey Douglas, and his wife Kim, introduced a book called Draw the Circle. And I was sick at the time that they passed the books out. The praise team members were talking about this book, and I was listening to them. And in my mind, I said, I'm not reading this book. That's how cynical I was. Eventually, I said, okay, I guess I'll read it. My life changed. I saw God as a friend of mine who loved me, who cared about me. One day I was reading the book and actually concerned also about what was happening in Washington. I had to quit my job at Union College because I got very sick, too sick to work. And so at that time, I was applying for disability. It took me 3 long years to get it, but I finally did. And so with this new administration, they were talking about getting rid or cutting Social Security. And that would mean also cutting my income, Social Security disability. So I was very upset about that. Because the book talks about drawing circles around things, drawing circles of prayer, I had decided earlier I can symbolically in my mind walk a circle around the U.S. Capitol where the representatives meet. One of my friends, Sister Stocks, she came into my room one evening. I told her what my idea was. And then she says, well, why don't you actually go? It took me aback. And I said, well, that's an interesting idea. I never even considered that. After she left my room, I thought, there's no way I'm going to Washington, D.C. I don't have any money. I'm not going. The pastor had come up with a fasting and prayer calendar along with the book, to go along with the book. And so the prayer for that day was ask God for something specific. I said, okay, I have something to pray now. I know specifically what I need from you. I need to know if you literally want me to go to Washington, D.C. and pray and walk around the Capitol. So with that prayer, I opened my book to day 21, Set Your Foot. There is nothing magical about physically circling something in prayer, but there is something biblical about it. The Israelites circled the city of Jericho until the wall came down. When I read that, I couldn't believe it. I started laughing. So the next day was Sabbath, and I talked to Natalie, the prayer director at the church, about what I thought God was asking me to do. And she said she would be in prayer with me about it. I wasn't quite convinced that God really wanted me to go to Washington, D.C. One of my other friends named Toyin, she turned to me and said, you know, Liz, I was thinking about teaching the kids Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. What do you think? And I started laughing because of all the songs in the world, she said Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. And then I finally had to concede. I said, okay, God, I hear you, I'm listening, and I'm going. So that's how I ended up going to Washington, D.C. for 7 days and praying. And this really was the change in my life that I needed. I needed to know that prayer was important. I needed to know that God was important. I needed to know that God had a purpose for my life and that I needed to share that purpose with the world. I got there 2 days earlier because of my illness, I know I get tired quite easily.
So you went during the summer, right?
Yes, I went during the summer. Oh yes, that's another story. So I asked God, okay, God, when do you want me to go? Immediately he said, the National Day of Prayer. And I said, I don't even know when that is. I consulted Google and found out that it was on May the 4th. And then I counted back. I'll say, okay, so May the 4th is National Day of Prayer. What is 7 days prior to that? And so the first day was April 28th, and that happened to be my birthday. And then I asked God, I said, well, what do you want me to call this walk? He said, the Jericho Walk of Faith. I was really getting concerned about where I was going to stay. I had already purchased my ticket, which was a blessing in itself. I was looking at hotel prices, and staying in Washington, D.C. is not cheap. 2 days before I was supposed to leave, 2 days, I still didn't know where I was going to stay. I was still anxious. I was still nervous, but I stopped looking. But I was still anxious. One day I took my friend, Sister Stocks, to Tuesday morning, and there was a woman standing in the store who looked really familiar. So I went up to her and I said, did you teach at the college? And she said, yes, I did. Her name is Dr. Marilyn MacArthur. And we got on the subject of me and what I was doing. And so I told her about what I thought God was telling me to do, or what I knew God was telling me to do. But I also told her that I was very anxious. I didn't have a place to stay and I didn't know what to do. She said, in Ellen G. White's writings, it says that God is responsible for you, that when he gives you a direction, he is responsible for getting the work done, getting you everything that you need in order to accomplish what he has called you to do. I told my friend also, Sister Stocks, my dilemma, and she ended up going to a birthday party and talking to some of the members. There were some members at the birthday party, and she told them my situation, and so they started strategizing, trying to figure out where I could stay. And one of the members said, well, why don't you call Washington Adventist University? And I was like, yeah, I never even thought about that. So I called the next day, and there was some back and forth. You know, it was the end of the school year. People, you know, they were graduating. People were moving out of the dorm, so it was really crazy there. But I ended up getting a room at Washington Adventist University. And way cheaper than a hotel would have ever been. I ended up getting there, tired, but I was there. And I ended up meeting this woman because I wasn't quite sure how the metro system worked. And so there was a lady that was looking at the map. I approached her and I told her that I was looking for the train that took you to the Capitol. And she started to explain it to me. And then she said, you know, I'm going that way, just come with me. And so we ended up riding together, all three of those trains. And we talked together, and I had a chance to tell her why I was in Washington, D.C. She worked in a very crucial, important place that was important to me. She was very frustrated about her position and what was happening. And I said, I'm so glad I got to meet you, because God wanted me to tell you, thank you. If no one else ever tells you thank you, you are there in that position for me. And she started crying. The only reason why she was on the train was because she was going to a meeting that she didn't want to go to. She said she could go into that meeting because she met me. She said she could go in that meeting with confidence now that her job and her opinions and what she's doing is making a difference. A very important point, or a very important thing to know and thing to realize, that obeying God is not just for you, it's for someone else. You are surrendering to Him and you're telling Him, God, wherever you want me to go, I will go. Whatever you want me to say, I will say. That is profoundly important. So what I learned from this was, people can bring, or God can bring people into your life to give you a word from Him. And also, not to worry. Even though it was 2 days before I had to leave, I still needed to trust God. Because just as Dr. MacArthur had said, when He gives you a directive, or when He tells you or gives you an assignment to do, He is responsible for giving you everything you need to get it done.
All right. I think that's good.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.